How's it going? I'm Visionary. This is Visionary Decks, and today we're going to be taking a look at day 6 of card reveals for the Glory in Navori expansion. Let's take a look. All right, so it looks like today is Variety Cards Day because we've got, I think, cards from 4 different regions, unless I'm mistaken. First one is a 2-mana slow speed spell from Targon. This says, deal 4 to an enemy that attacked this round or is stunned. Isn't this just Paddle Star? I mean, I guess maybe they're rotating Zoe's champion spell, and this is just like a better replacement for that, which, to be honest, I'm on board for, because usually you had to pay, I think, 2 mana to stun, and then another 3 mana to actually play this, which was the whole removal part of the spell. This is actually, like, scarily good, because deal 4 for 2 is very effective. This is basically a flock. This is like Targon's flock, and honestly, I see no reason not to just play this as a 3-of in every Targon deck. Am I crazy? Like, 4 damage is a lot of damage. The fact that this, could be played on anything that attacks is just insane, because it's going to make me paranoid now. Whenever I'm playing against Targon, I'm going to be like, well, I can't attack with this, because what if they have Falling Star? I can't attack with this, because what if they have, like, I don't... This is going to be like mind games. I really don't like this. This just seems like way too effective at 2 mana. Like, the thing about Flock that kind of makes it a little bit balanced is you have to at least damage something first. Then you can Flock. The crazy thing about this is there is, like, basically no limit to what you can target. Most units that you play are going to attack sometime. So, like, if you have a specific unit that you're trying to save this for, and you're like, I really want to hit this one unit, odds are it's probably going to attack at some point in the game, and you just hit it with this out of nowhere, and what is the opponent going to do? With this in the meta, I feel like Nopify is actually going to become an extremely necessary spell. So hopefully that's not rotated. By the way, apparently there's like a stupid amount of cards that are going to get rotated, which is very interesting. So I'm going to assume this is probably just replacing Zoe's spell. I don't know if that's on the rotation list, but I mean, geez, dude, like, this is insane. Insane card. Extremely useful. Wow. Just insane. Absolutely crazy card. Moving on to the next one, a 2-mana 1/4 from Targon, Cosmic Youngling. Round start, heal me and your Nexus 1. This is also really strong, I feel like. It's 2 mana. Like, that's very cheap. And it's got 4 health. This is a good Star Spring card, obviously. This is a great card for just, like, control decks. It is only 1 per round, but if this comes down turn 2, that's pretty effective. Like, against an aggro deck, I feel like this is extremely nice. Aggro decks typically don't have ways to remove units. This is a very solid blocker, but it's also just very solid to keep in the back row and just have it going off every turn start. Honestly, like, one of the best 2-drops in the game, in my opinion. Obviously, you're not going to put it in, like, certain decks, but if you're playing a slow deck, like, this is basically Eye of the Dragon, maybe a better Eye of the Dragon for Targon, because it has no condition, right? There's no, like, if you've hit flow, or if you've done this round. This is just guaranteed. Guaranteed healing. This card is nuts. All right, moving on to the next one, a 6-mana slow spell from Shadow Isles. This one's called Eradication. Kill all units with 3 or less power. Okay, so this is basically like a mini Ruination with a condition. It only kills units that are cheap. I mean, I guess this is also good against aggro. I personally feel like this card is pretty bad. I'm gonna be honest. I guess we'll have to see. With Senna, this does become fast speed. So this is sort of like, I guess, a Castigate in a way, but probably not even as good as Castigate, because Castigate can kill, like, I don't know, a She Who Wanders or something really big. This cannot do that. This can only kill something that couldn't even block a Fearsome. Like, I don't know. I feel like most times you play this, like, you're going to end up spending more mana to play this than the opponent actually spent to play their units that this is killing. I don't know. I feel like this is actually, like, a really just unfavorable card to play. Again, we still don't know exactly what's being rotated, so maybe this starts to make a little bit more sense once we see the full list of cards that are being rotated. But, you know, at the moment, especially compared to the new Targon cards we just saw, this is, like, very underwhelming, in my opinion. I don't know. This seems like a pretty bad card. And again, another thing to keep in mind is this is all units, right? So this is not even just the opponent's units. Like if you're playing a deck that has cheap units or even expensive units that have less than 3 power, it's still going to kill your... Like this is just not good, man. I don't know what to say. It's really just not good. All right, moving on to the next one, a 2-mana spell from Shadow Isles. Again, this one's called Soul Harvest. Kill a follower with 3 or less power, or spend 4 mana to kill a champion with 3 or less power. Okay, so this almost seems like a replacement Quietus. This is supposed to do what old Quietus was supposed to do. Old Quietus was like really good against Braum, and then they're like, okay, maybe it was too good. We don't want Braum to die. And now they're backtracking and they're like, I mean, maybe we'll just make another Quietus that can kill Braum. I guess you have to spend 4 mana, so you would be equally trading. So that does make this somewhat balanced. Like the most unbalanced part of old Quietus was that it was 1 mana, period. Like you could kill a really valuable unit and it would only be 1 mana. I feel like this is definitely more balanced. This is probably fine, honestly. This actually seems to me like it's just going to purely replace Quietus, in my opinion. Quietus does have the second ability of destroying an equipment, but I feel like this is better, personally. All right, moving on to a Freljord 2-mana, 2/3, Frostcoat Cub. Spend 6 mana to play me as Frostcoat Mother instead. So it could be a 2-mana, 2/3 with no keywords. Could be a 6-mana, 7/5 with Overwhelm. Okay, so this is fantastic for anti-aggro decks, control decks. This is a way to maybe not even have to play Avalanche and still be able to like block aggro on turn 2, right? Because you can play it as the 2-drop, but way later in the game, once you've ramped all the way to mana 10, you draw this 2-drop and you're like, dang it, I just drew my 2-drop. But you can still play it as a 7/5 Overwhelm, which is very, very solid, especially at 6 mana. It's super solid, honestly. Very good card. All right. Thrall Bulwark. Finally, we're seeing some new Thrall cards. There's still only been 1 Thrall in the game, by the way. This is the 2nd Thrall to ever be added. It's just the one that Lysandra creates. I don't take damage from allied spells or skills. Beautiful. Perfect. Absolutely what Freljord needed. You can Avalanche. This is still a 3/4. You can Blighted Ravine, and it will get hit. But as long as you're playing Avalanche, even Icequake, even... That's pretty much it. It will not take damage, which is sweet. I guess Ice Shards as well. So this is a really good card to have on board with the leveled Lysandra, because you can just go to town playing the Ice Shards she creates every turn, and this thing doesn't even care. Really good card, especially at 3 mana. Not bad. Great stats, perfect ability for Freljord. I feel like Freljord needed this kind of card for a long time. This also does sort of have an interesting application for any spells that are like deal damage to an ally and then you get to do something cool. There's not a lot of spells in the game that work like that. Most of them are like kill an ally to do something cool, like Crumble, but there is that 1 mana burst spell in Bilgewater that gives 2 enemies vulnerable if you deal 2 to an ally. So you could play that on this, take 0 damage, and you get to get 2 things vulnerable. I don't know how good that is. I don't know. Maybe there's other cards that I'm not thinking of that are like similar to that would be solid to just play on this, because the crazy thing is it doesn't take damage from allied spells, right? So it still will take damage if the opponent Mystic Shots it. It basically lets you build your deck around like, hey, I want to damage this thing, which is super cool. I think this is a cool archetype. Would you ever play it with Bilgewater? Probably not, but I don't know. Maybe there's some other spells that damage units that would just be like solid. There is Absorb Soul in Shadow Isles, so you could drain 4 from this, and you still have the unit on board. That's not bad. There is that big lizard in Noxus, which is deal 4 to an ally to deal 4 to an enemy. You could play that on this, I guess. It does like synergize with ramp decks fairly well, so I don't know, maybe there's some weird like new Noxus ramp deck that uses that as a trick. This does make me wonder how spells like, I don't know, single combat would work, because technically it is an allied spell, right? But it's the opponent's unit that is doing the damage. It's striking. So like, because the strike was triggered by an allied spell, maybe it doesn't take damage. I don't know. I'm gonna assume it probably would still take damage because the spell itself does not say like deal X amount of damage. Because if that works, why not just buff this unit up, load your deck with single combat, fish fight. Like this lets you maybe use two-sided strike spells like single combat as essentially a one-sided strike spell like Furious Wielder, which could be very strong. I'm gonna assume it doesn't work that way, but if it does, that's nuts. Moving on to a 4-mana fast speed spell from Demacia, Search Warrant. An ally with 4+ power captures a unit, or an ally captures a landmark. Interesting. Okay, so 4+ power is a tough requirement for sure. In Demacia, I guess since you're probably playing like elites, you probably should be able to pull out a unit that'll have 4+ power. This can just get denied with a Frostbite, which is interesting if you're going for the capture a unit. I feel like this is super useful for playing against a deck like Rise or Bandletree or Star Spring. Like, this is actually nuts for Demacia because they've never had efficient landmark removal. They've never been able to really like remove a Sun Disk or remove a Bandletree. Like, now those types of decks are probably just not going to be playable. This is crazy. For 4 mana, like, this is not bad at all. I think this is something every region probably needs, so it's cool that Demacia has their own way to do it, right? It's not destroy a landmark or recall a landmark, it's capture. Another really interesting thing to note is this is a cheaper version of Detain, which was 5 mana and basically did less than this. Like, I'd say Detain is just an all-around worse spell. It didn't have a requirement, so like you could have a 1/1 capture unit if you really wanted to, but this is the same follower on the spell art, I think, that creates Detain. So part of me wonders if they're going to just replace Detain with Search Warrant, and that unit is still going to be in the game, but now it's just going to create this instead. I don't know. I mean, yeah, overall, just a much more playable card than Detain. Seems like Detain was basically just updated for the current meta. Super solid card, honestly. Super solid. All right, and finally, Forma. That's a voice line that someone says. I don't know who says it. It's one of those soldiers out there in Demacia. 2 mana burst speed, +2/+2 this round. Very simple. I mean, it's not the worst. If you're playing elites, you probably would like this better than Sharp Sight, especially considering blocking Badger Bear is now a thing. You have your way to block elusives, so maybe that sort of gives you an excuse to drop the Sharp Sight, play this instead. You get a little +1 attack bonus. It's not a huge difference. I don't know, maybe it's just not even worth replacing Sharp Sight at all, but I definitely feel like this is going to be playable somewhere. I feel like this is solid with Akshan. Maybe Demacia Akshan comes back. That has not been a thing for a while. 2 mana +2/+2 is like good in a lot of regards. It's just the question of what decks would rather play this than Sharp Sight. And I don't know that there are a ton. But that's it for today's cards. Super cool set of variety cards. Honestly, like some of the most interesting cards we have seen this expansion, in my opinion. I feel like a lot of these are just going to become meta. Like, we're all very, very good. Especially the Targon ones. I feel like the Targon ones are kind of unbalanced, but I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, I'll see you guys tomorrow for day 7. Thanks for watching. See you later.